All right. It looks like we are live.
Woo! Hey
Heck
guys,
yes. How is it going, everybody? We have Mario Peshev over here.
party!
Excellent. Ow! Oh, I actually had the live tab open in my browser just now, and so we're on about a 10-second delay. So I just heard both of us yelling in my ears while trying to talk. So hey, first tries of doing this kind of stuff. It happens. But anyway, I am just very thankful that you and I are getting together. We have been connected on LinkedIn for quite some time. That's where we met. I have been watching. I'm just going to give a little bit of background here. Been watching Mario's videos for quite some time, and started commenting on them. I've just started doing some content creation myself for LinkedIn, which has been absolutely fantastic. And so, kind of a funny story. Actually, do you want to tell the story? Or do you want me to about how we got connected?
Yeah,
Like,
I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. So yeah, basically, so like I do try to do this thing. Like, I mean, I'm actually going to take it a step backwards. So basically, I've been on Twitter for many years. Like recently, most of the peeps moved to Mastodon and to other places. I've been spending lots of time on LinkedIn. So basically, I lost touch with lots of fellows in my circle, which wasn't really ideal. So recently, I've been trying to reconnect and kind of just bond with some of the fellows back in my circle, as well as some new folks, as well as some of the peeps who actually engage with my content, right?
Yeah.
So like I've been seeing you around as well, and like you've also been active in my videos, which I very much appreciate, because most of the people are pretty quiet and silent. So like
Right.
I was, hey, I'm going to just write you a thanks message on LinkedIn and stuff, like just tell you that we may actually collaborate on some content. So I typed this in, I hit enter, and like less than 2 seconds later, I just see a large message from yourself. Like, what the hell? Like, that's utterly impossible. Like, that never happened. So like the timing was ridiculous. Again, like we've never spoken before, and we've been like just exchanging some comments every now and then on LinkedIn, and like suddenly within the time span of 2 seconds, both of us just touched base.
Boom.
Completely ridiculous.
And being 7 hours apart, where you were like trying to get out the door and back home, and I'm sitting here about to close up and eat some dinner, like the just the likelihood of that happening is just unfathomable.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
man,
Love it. Call it karma if you want.
Exactly. So I say we go ahead and dive in a little bit here. This is actually the first time that you and I have chatted with each other, so we have lots of new stories to tell each other. So I want to kind of kickstart this. You are a developer, right? Like you actually code, and you went from your freelance career, and kind of slowly built things up to where you're running your own development shop. You have a team of people, you have an office space, the whole 9 yards, right?
Yep, precisely. That's kind of the story.
And so I'm curious, and I have my own version of this, but I kind of want to hear yours first. Like when you had that kind of that oh crap moment where you're a freelancer and you're sitting there thinking, I can't do this anymore by myself. And you're like, okay, I need to find, that one person or those couple of people that I can delegate out to. Like, when did that happen for you, and how long did that kind of take you to bridge that gap, if you will?
Yeah, absolutely. So I do think that my story is, well, not untraditional, but like a little bit different than most stories that I hear from other people. So most people either find their own co-founders and they start, 2 and 3 people and start scaling from there. That's kind of one usual scenario. Or they just do pretty successful freelance/consulting career, and they onboard the first person, the second person, and so on. Or they start again solo and they start working with freelancers. Some of the freelancers start pumping up hours. Like those are the traditional stories that personally I hear from other people. Now, with me, it was a little bit different. Now, I was a freelance developer, and that's true. But like freelance, I started freelancing back in 2008, exactly when the financial crisis really struck big time.
Oh
right?
man, yeah, that's bad.
I know, but like this is my own version of reality. It was like, I'm probably going to lose my job anyway. So, that's probably the best time to start. And especially like if I manage to pull it off, right, it's probably going to be a match made in heaven, right? Like this is the toughest time in this, I don't know, decade or two or so that's to start a business. So let's just give it a shot. So freelancing itself, it was kind of so-so. Like I was making a living more or less, but it was pretty rough. I was just trying to invest a lot in marketing and branding and some stuff that I didn't understand is called marketing and branding back in the day, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. So yeah, but one of my key kind of niches that helped me scale further was training and technical training. So
Oh, interesting.
yeah, I had some background. So I actually led some trainings for SAP, VMware, and a bunch of other companies. Actually, some of the more successful ones. And now the tricky thing or the funny thing was, in the moment of crisis, companies don't want to hire people because it's expensive
It
and all
is,
like
yeah.
that. But they can actually upgrade existing people to something more valuable for them, so that their existing people start making more money for the company. And also they want to retain their best talent, so they don't leave, even though it was the shittiest time to leave anyways.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was kind of probably working part-time as a trainer and part-time as a developer. So I hired someone who's currently my co-founder, Stanko.
Nice.
He's the CTO of the company, but like he was actually started working with me before the company was officially founded.
Yeah.
So he was first helping with some basic development tasks, and also helping me prepare presentations and doing code samples and lab exercises and things like that for my training groups, essentially. So while I was trying to juggle with a lot of things, so slowly he kind of became more confident with coding skills and that jazz. And later on, we landed a project, we landed another one, third one. I was working kind of a part-time job, remote job, while trying to, again, finance all that endeavor. While taking on some projects, he was taking those projects as well. So it was a pretty dynamic act by its own. But at some point of time, we managed to start hiring some freelancers, hiring some other people, and slowly start to build it up. And right now we are, I don't know, 38 people or so, with 2 starting by the end of the month.
That's fantastic, my friend. So yeah, you're a little bit bigger than I am. So we have a team of about 10 people or so, but we're kind of at that stage that you were talking about, kind of the more traditional route, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was a freelancer. I actually started development back when I was in 5th grade. I started elementary school, and I picked up this little book. It was about yay big, and it said, "Hey, how to program your first website." I didn't grab Harry Potter, right? I didn't grab that. I grabbed the web design book. I had no idea what it was. And so
which year was that in?
That would have been in, I was born in 89. So maybe about like 97, about 10 years old. So like 98, 99, if I'm doing my math correctly. So been doing what I've been doing technically for about 15 to 17 years. It just depends on if you want to count middle school years and making $100 websites, actually clients. It's a pros and cons to balancing that out. But yeah, I actually picked everything up in elementary school, started developing. My brother is 10 years older than I am, and he was in business school at the time. And so when I got to middle school and actually started having clients and doing work and not getting paid what I should be getting paid for what I was doing, he was like, "Hey, I'm doing business school. Maybe I can help you run a little business here on the side and whatever." And so he came back home from university, from college, every single weekend. We built this little business together, and he's actually actively running his own business now. He kind of parted ways a little bit. He really grabbed hold of the design side, not as much the development side. And so he actually kind of runs his own print shop right now, and he does web on the side with a lot of WordPress stuff and whatnot. I, during college, went the website like 110%. Yeah. And so eventually it was nice because I had a business I could fall back on, right? So I get a new client that came in the door and be like, "Hey, I'm a part of Goldmine. I'm not just Chris LaFay. I'm a part of this big old business," which is and that's it. So that worked out for a while, but then kind of once the path started diverging more and more, it just made more sense for me to create my own little business and him to create his, or to stay the course with what he has. And so, yeah, his is successful. He's supporting his family. He's doing a great job. And we're grown. We're at about 4 employees and about 10 freelancers that work with us on a very, very, very regular basis. Some of them feel like they're full-time employees because of how much stuff we pass them over. And that transition process for me was really interesting. Like, learning how to delegate was hard. I don't know if you had that problem or not, but
I still do.
right? It's because you're so involved in the day-to-day stuff, and especially, I mean, I've been doing it since I've been in middle school, and so I'm so used to having my hands like in the code and being the one person that has to do everything. I pretty much had to force myself to delegate. I brought on actually brought on when I brought on my first full-time developer. I went back and forth on it for about 3 months. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe I should. Maybe I shouldn't. Maybe I have no idea. But by bringing him on and taking on that salary, I was like, I have to give everything that I could do to you. And it really kind of pushed me and forced me to do that.
I know. Yeah.
How about for you? I'm curious.
It's again, it's pretty much the same. It's like, probably one of us doesn't have to talk during this show,
Right.
So yeah, it was like pretty much same year, more or less 97, 98, something like that. I actually built my first site in 99, probably.
Nice.
And yeah, I was also doing some freelancing as a kid, more or less, just working with, like, my mom has an accounting firm, which actually works with my business now. And she's like, she had some clients, the web was still new, so I was building websites for her clients. One of them was still live, like the 99 version was still live like 2 or 3 years ago, which is pretty spectacular. And it was very embarrassing for me at the same time. But yeah, I was actually working at a computer internet club or whatever you call it.
Yeah.
And I was working in one of those places, and there were some other geeks there who was trying to hack games and use some disassemblers to patch games and crack them. So I was learning QBasic from some of those folks, trying to do my formulas at school. And also I stumbled upon a site. I actually just checked it out in archive.org. So it was designed in 97, I believe. And somewhere in 97, 98, I took my first HTML lessons. And the funny thing was I took them on Pokemon.
Hey, there you go. That's awesome.
I built my first Pokédex, and I had the images of Charizard and stuff with like a collection and things like that.
Yes, that is awesome.
Absolutely, it was super fun. So yeah, I mean, I can definitely relate on background, but like, I mean, I like what you say about delegation, because I have to admit that my training background had one specific flow, or at least I consider it a flow, even though my business probably wouldn't have been the same without it. But like, for a very long time, for a few years, I was used to kind of hiring people through internship campaigns, and my former trainees of mine, people who were significantly less experienced than me. So they were kind of helping us juniors and probably to some extent lower mid-level people, right? So this was kind of a downside, because the entire business model was revolving around me figuring everything out and just breaking everything down into small chunks, giving to a couple people, 2, 3, 4 people, and then trying to build all this up. Now,
that's so hard to do. Yeah, I know what you mean.
It's absolutely horrendous at times. But like, luckily with time, we had some external, consultants and also some experienced freelancers. Some of them joined us. Some of the less experienced people became very experienced and stuck with us, which I'm very grateful for again. So we we managed to find a balance and hire some very experienced people. But like, there were several years where the full-time staff was, again, less experienced. I was doing most of the heavy lifting myself. And we also had like a couple of full-time kind of outsourced developers working with me who were also helping with the heavy lifting. But that was kind of a disbalanced thing that I'm really happy to have now. But yeah, delegation is definitely a problem, and delegation is definitely something that I'm still struggling with. Like, it's much better than it used to be 5 years ago, but it's still a problem. And how did you tackle it yourself? Like, how did you make it work for you?
So for me, kind of, it's in 2 phases, and phase 2 of it is really actively happening right now. So phase 1 was earlier this year when we brought on our first lead developer, who, unlike other freelancers that we've worked with in the past, was worth his salt. Like, he can do kind of full stack 100% and actually is good at all of it. That was the exact person I needed to duplicate myself. I needed somebody that could do HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, the whole 9 yards. And it was really well timed, because right at that point where we needed somebody like then and there, he's actually been working with us for 2.5 years now, give or take. And he was actually in college over that 2.5 years, and he was graduating right at that point where we really needed somebody bad to come on full time. And so he was able to come on. and has just really knocked everything out of the park for us.
Slick,
And
very slick.
it's amazing once you have that person that you can delegate to and you're comfortable with it. It's amazing how much more work gets done. And it's amazing how better it is. Like, I mean, I'm in the most humble way possible. I'm a pretty decent developer. I've been doing it for 15 years. But these are people that want to be developing 100% of the time. And that's what a lot of my developers are. They love it. They don't want to go out and they don't want to sell. They don't want to build deep relationships with people and go out to network. And they don't want to do all that kind of stuff. They just want to sit there and do their work and get it done and do it well. And who I needed was somebody that would force me to go out and spend my extra time talking with people, building relationships. And phase 2 of that, which is happening now, I just brought on, because what was happening, kind of like what you were saying, you were doing all the heavy lifting, right? Anything that was higher level complexity than X, you were handling it. I was doing the same, and I was doing the same thing. And from a project management standpoint, I was also doing the same thing. Is anything above a certain level, I was managing. But then what happens is these tasks come in, these little minute tasks, these 10, 15-minute tasks, right? It's so much easier just to do them yourself than it is to send it off to another person, even my guy that's full-time. Send it off to him, tell him what it is, send the FTP credentials, the GitHub repos, all that jazz. It's so much easier to do it yourself. I probably waste 10 hours a week doing monotonous little stuff. And so I brought on a part-time project manager who's technical, and I threw him into the fire. I was like, here are 5 projects, and here are 5 new ones that are about to come. You're going to manage all of them. And I will give you as much training as you need. I will help you. I will walk through. I'll do the pass-offs with you, the whole 9 yards. I'll make it as smooth as possible. But if I don't toss you into the fire, then I'm going to keep managing projects. And I can't do that. I have to be out and chatting with people and talking and making sales and all the stuff that comes with being an owner of a business. I have to be doing that. And that started about a month and a half ago. And that is forcing me to delegate. Because I know if I don't immediately pass that client off to them as soon as that contract is signed, I'm going to get sucked into project management again. And I'm not bad at it. I enjoy it. I love keeping a client relationship and building it throughout, the weeks and months and however long a project takes. But it's from an ownership perspective and bringing in new business, it sucks out a lot of time. And that's the time you can't get back. So, do you manage a lot of projects?
It's complicated. Like now, I'm really switching between way too many hats, right? Like you said, I mean, it's doing sales, doing marketing, negotiations, and building relationships, and project management, and still architecture development, internal meetings, and hiring, legal, accounting. It's like way too many things now.
Are you your own? Please tell me you're not your own lawyer, though, right? I hope not. Oh no.
Luckily, I'm not.
Oh, okay, good. When I found one that I liked, I was so relieved. I'm like, I don't have to do this anymore. I am safe now. This is great. Sorry, go ahead.
No, like I mean, a few years ago, I actually kind of paid for a legal package or something, which is kind of the starter pack. It's kind of quite common. It's just different variations of it. So I used it for a while. Then I had a couple legal firms doing specific things for me, like new contracts and other stuff that was kind of helpful. But like recently, like a few months ago, we actually signed a retainer with a legal firm that I really like, because they specialize in some stuff like GDPR and ICOs and, the leading edge stuff, right? So they really love dealing with some more complex projects than real estate and construction work, like the standard traditional stuff that like almost everyone does, or, divorce lawyers, or like, people like stuff that's been around for the past, I don't know, 100 years, right? So they try to be more bleeding edge, and we're trying to coordinate more things and have people working remotely as well, which is another challenge on its own, and different, NDAs that are more specific across countries and continents. So that's also a kind of a challenge that we're, But yeah, I mean, I digress. So yeah, I mean, over the past 2 or 3 years, like I haven't been coding as much, and that's true. But I still put a lot of time into architecture and refactoring, reviewing pull requests, and a bunch of those things simply because it's not necessarily needed, but I'm still like in the tech leadership. And I also feel I have a stronger bond with the team when I can actually discuss specific things with them. Like, hey, you know, like I saw what you did for this project. Like we may actually think about refactoring it. Like, that's actually something we've been doing this week with one of our developers, right? Or like, hey, I see a bunch of cases here, so we have to design the architecture in a way that makes a lot more sense because we have like 5 clients running almost similar requirements. So we need a layer that simultaneously allows us to build extensions on top of all that, right? And especially because my background is a little bit different in terms of coding. Like I used to do Java development and enterprise Java development more. So I've done a lot of stuff in Java, in Python, in other languages that's more server-oriented, like DevOps 15 years ago. Well, not 15, but like 12 years ago, which is still a little bit different than what we have right now. But like, automated builds and deployments, running unit tests, stuff that we, again, still have nowadays. So I'm trying to chime in for those areas and also other areas that are more interesting to me, like innovation, new technologies, big data, machine learning, stuff like that, like things that really excite me, and so that I don't actually have to reinvent the wheel. But aside of that, I do manage some projects. I do, like, we have many of our clients are actually on Slack, so I'm responding to comments, checking with the team, checking with project managers. But it's kind of a fine balance. It's more like, we always lack some resources. Like we need more developers or more project managers or more QA people.
Yes, and all the time.
So I try to be the the firefighter in the family, more or less, and along with a few other experienced people in the management team. But I believe it's actually pretty cool. It's a lot more hands-on. I know lots of people working for bosses that are not as hands-on. So that kind of throws me off, right? It's like, how can I have working in a small team, up to 50 people or 70, 80 people, where the boss doesn't really know what's going on, right? Like he's just around for a couple hours a day, and like they are always off to a vacation or like just traveling for a month for whatever reason. They don't know what's going on in the company. Like it's just a different person who's like almost not working with the same company. So it's kind of weird. And like, how long do you spend on coding right now? Like if you can break the percentage ratio for, like, I know every day is super dynamic,
really?
on an average a week.
I would probably say, because I don't know if you do, but I actually keep pretty solid track of every hour that I spend. And really it's mostly just for analytical purposes to know if I'm actually doing my job right. And so I would say probably about 6 months ago, I was not working a 40-hour week, but much more than that. But I would probably say about 50% of my time, if not more than that, of a 40-plus hour week was being spent on development and not on sales, business development, etc. Now, I would probably say over the last month and a half, I mean, I might have touched code for maybe 10 hours, maybe 15, nothing much, because we have been able to, over the course of the projects, and because of the new project manager that we brought on, we end up scoping out a piece of work to do, and he's very good at saying, okay, before we scope this out, let's talk to all the individuals that are going to be doing this project. And let's make sure we know how many hours this is going to take them. Because sometimes when I scope stuff out, I scope it out with my hours that it would take me. But Joe Schmo over there, it might take him half the amount of time. It might take him triple the amount of time. I don't know that without asking the guy. So
speaking to the choir, for sure.
Exactly. And so by bringing in kind of somebody fresh from the outside that is a technical person but doesn't know our processes well and is kind of learning those, teaching him on the upfront, this is how we want to do things. Am I doing these things now? I'm not. So I need to preach to myself and practice what I preach. But he's not been inundated with, the norms of how we do business for 10 years. And so he comes in with a completely fresh perspective. And by doing so, it makes sure that our projects are scoped out well. He makes sure that he grabs the people for the team that he wants to build for that project. And then he sticks those people on that project and keeps them there. And it doesn't move people around A to B to C like we have in the past, which is detrimental for efficiencies. Good gosh.
Oh, yeah.
So by having him on staff and by basically forcing all the development, he basically forces all the development out of my hands. As long as I pass that off appropriately, I don't get bogged down with the development, and I've actually been able to spend time building relationships with people. So that percentage is definitely on the swing up from, 10% development every week, maybe 15 on a worse one. So I love it. It's great, I think. But like you said, though, kind of keeping that high level overview of knowing everything that's happening, because the couple of companies I worked for, not necessarily my direct bosses, because my direct bosses will probably be watching this later when we publish it, so not you guys, but the people that were above them and whatnot, they seem so disconnected from everything. And as you grow and you get more people on your team, that's more unique situations that you have to have your eyes on at some point. And kind of keeping a hold of kind of that high level development, kind of like what you said, is a fantastic way of making sure that you're kind of in line and knowing what your people are doing so that you can relate to them. It's all about being able to relate to them. It doesn't matter whether it's a client, an employee, a contractor, freelancer, or whatever.
Yeah.
You have to be able to relate to them. So
yeah, absolutely. Even though it's probably also worth noting that like the workload here is more or less defined by, we all know the feast and famine cycle. And, there are times that you really have to struggle and push for sales. There are times that you're really overworked and have to do a shitload of work in no time. And even though like at some point of time in a few years, you start to get a little bit more stable, right? You have more buffer in the bank, you have, more calmness, that you have more ongoing clients. So like even if one of them left, it's not the end of the world. It's not pleasant, but it's not the end of the world, right?
Exactly.
But like still there are times that, probably a couple of your clients leave, and it's not really the best thing to do, right? You're probably breaking even, probably running a little, tiny loss, and you have a buffer in the bank for like 8-9 months ahead, but it's still that feeling that like something's not going well. Your team is slightly demotivated and probably worried about the future of the company, things like that, when you really have to push very hard for sales, right? And at the same time, there are times that you're closing 1 or 2 deals that include lots of R&D. They're risky. They have the potential to, turn around the next 1 or 2 years. And like you just need to be, day and night cutting in and just helping out the team, right? So that's why I say it's really that it's really hard to find that equilibrium between having all things at the same time and having the free time, or not free, but like just being able to balance this out properly. So yeah, it's definitely fun. It's definitely tricky.
As you've grown, because you have more employees than I do on my team, how have you kind of managed your employee relationship with all of your employees? Kind of that what do you call that? I'm losing my words here, but that emotional tie between your team members and making sure that they all feel loved on and cared about and all that kind of fun stuff.
So
the culture is the word I was looking for, is the key buzzword nowadays. Do you have a good company culture? Obviously you do, but like, what do you do?
Yeah, now you're bringing up an interesting topic, simply because culture and the emotional bond with the leadership are actually 2 different things.
They are, yes.
Because it's kind of really important. Like if I want to work for a brand I really like I don't know, Starbucks, or I don't know, Google because of Pixel, but I know Google's boss,
Google
things like
Pixel.
that. Like same here. But yeah, I mean, eventually, like if I want to work for one of those companies, I'm going to join it because of the brand. But if I want to work for Facebook or Microsoft or Google or Apple, like those are actual leaders I want to work for, right? So I believe that those are 2 different things. And sometimes you want to work for the company and the leader, but sometimes it's only for one of those things, and there may be the mismatch between both. Like if you have a great culture, but you don't really understand the leadership, it's also tricky.
It is.
And like I had a period of in my time, like especially over the past year, because we have a 10-month-old at home. And like,
congratulations, by the way. I'm surprised that you're awake. I know that your wife is gone with your child, but I am impressed that you are awake right now. Like, that's impressive.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, I mean, like I'm just taking advantage of the few days where she's with her mom, and the kid. But yeah, I'm just traveling to pick her up tomorrow evening probably.
Nice.
But yeah, bottom line, it's I had that period of time that I was really trying to allocate a lot more time with my family, and which is of course logical. And I was spending fewer hours with the team, and at some point it was like I was really losing the heartbeat of the company, which wasn't super ideal, right? So now over the past few months, when the kid is already past the very babyish
Yeah.
infant phase, right now she's just she's an infant, but she's not a newborn anymore.
Yeah.
Now it's a little bit easier to just spend a little more time with the company as well. And now like there's that actual bond with people, just sending me messages and like joking with me and stuff, and actually looking up to me for advice for different things, right?
Yeah.
As compared to just texting me on Slack and expecting to answer in a couple of hours when I feed the kid and take a
Right.
shower with it or something like that, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's a little bit different. So yeah, I mean, we've been trying to work on both things in parallel. Like the leadership thing is one thing. Now we just moved to a new office, which coincidentally, and I'm super grateful for, is right next to the place I live, right? So it's
Oh,
like pretty
nice.
much a 2-minute walk. Like I can't complain. It's
That's
a great
awesome.
place, yeah. So I managed to have a little bit more time to actually just spend an extra time with the team because I don't have to commute, or I can just jump to home for an hour and then get back and things like that. So it's pretty great. We do have previously we were dispersed across 2 different floors, so it was harder to meet everyone. Now it's a bit
Yeah.
easier to just the guys over the kitchen or the hall or something else. So it's it's much more awesome. And also in terms of culture, it's a combination of different things. It's the purpose of the company, it's innovation, it's hard work, it's just learning all the time. It's having very nice people. It has very open policy. Like everyone is completely free to nag me for whatever reason, or just complain about stuff, or just tell what they have to say. And that's super important, because otherwise, you have that backstabbing, or just talking behind someone's back. Something that we really
That's
try
not
to
good.
avoid.
Yeah, and
So-
when you start getting into that kind of stuff, it's hard to turn that around. Once it starts and it starts to permeate little bits and areas, it's so hard to fix it. Really,
to reverse it, yeah, it's
so
really
bad.
really hard to reverse it. Yeah, so we're very cautious about that, and really cautious during the hiring process. Like we occasionally have people who are good at what they do, but they won't fit the culture, and that just doesn't fit the bucket, right? Even if we're not a 5-person company, so like people may actually work on different projects in different rooms and so on. It's just it doesn't work out. It doesn't help us scale and continue developing the culture in the very same manner. So yeah, that's probably the gist of it. We already have more or less established best practices, some mottos, some kind of design principles for the company that everyone has to follow more or less. And we try to match the people according to those behavioral principles that we want people to behave according to, more or less.
Yeah.
And what about you? Like, how did you pick, for example, your project manager and your deputy? Like, what were the driving forces to make you hire those people as full-time employees?
Yeah, so with our project manager, I actually have known him for a while. So we go back kind of actually towards high school age. Really, we haven't known each other really well since then, but we've kind of crossed paths randomly throughout life. And so when I brought him on, I knew that he was, I don't want to say hard-nosed because that has a bad connotation to it, but I knew that he would not be one of those people that would just roll over for every single client need that's in the book. And I knew his personality and kind of what he does and all that jazz, and it kind of works. His personality jives well with the few people that we have on staff too. And so when you are as small as we are, 5 or 6 people on a very regular basis, and then up to about 12 or 15 when you include external contractors, it's really easy to figure out, especially if you know somebody, if they're going to jive well with the other people that are working in the other various aspects of the business. Yeah. And so bringing him on was very simple and very easy to do, because I've known his personality for a while, and I know that he would fit in with everybody else that's here. And for our developer, we've been working with him for the last 2.5 years. And so he knows our systems, he knows our processes. He just knows that he needs somebody that will say, hey, here are your tasks, run with them and go. And let him do what he does best and not micromanage. And so when you have people that don't need to be micromanaged, that's a huge, huge plus, because that's one thing that I've always looked for with people is do they have that drive? Do they have, because we're all virtual. Like you could, if you couldn't tell, I'm at my house right now. But
completely non-noticeable.
say that again.
Completely not noticeable.
Oh, right, exactly. Yeah. So, excuse me. But because we're all virtual, it takes a very particular kind of person to have the drive working at home and getting their stuff done. It's not for everybody. And we've had a handful of people over the years that just haven't really worked out very well. And I'm very thankful that the majority have. But being able to find those people that have that drive and to where you basically can tell them, hey, I need X done by this date and done. And then by that date, if not a day before, they come back and say, hey, look, got this finished. This is good to go. Boom. It's wonderful. And honestly, I've been really, because I really haven't had to go through a hiring process for most people. Because we are so small, the people that I need to bring on at certain times, they already kind of know that they've known me for a while. I'm still kind of in that friends and family circle of people outside, not counting developers. Developers are outside of that at this point.
I'm kind of envious, though.
Right? No, exactly. It's nice because I've heard horror stories about the hiring process. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get until you work with a person for 2 or 3 months, and no matter who it is, you just don't know. Even with people that are close that I've known, like you still don't know in 2 or 3 months if they're still going to be a good fit or not. And so I've been really blessed. Everybody that we brought on has been the exact right person for the time that we've needed them. And my network has grown at a perfect time for when we bring in new projects where we need some extra developers. We have them. And the day before us, we found somebody that fits that exact mold the client's looking for. And we're like, boom, let's get it done. So, I mean, it's wonderful. Like, kind of our growth trajectory is kind of that nice, slow, steady, linear curve. Not linear curve. That's not right. But, that's really what we're shooting for. We're not shooting for humongous exponential growth. I don't think we could handle ridiculous growth in a short amount of time. So our goal is just, to grow at a nice steady pace and keep food on the table for everybody that works with us. It's a lot of fun. So
we actually had, like, when we were smaller, we had a couple of years with pretty much doubling the growth. But I mean, when you're 4 people, reaching to 8 people is not really completely impossible, right? It's just
exactly
the natural sequence of things, more or less. But just this year, I think we're at about, probably this year, maybe about 60% or so hired. Like, I think we hired about 14 people this year, maybe.
That's awesome. Kudos to you, man. That's great.
Yeah, thanks. But I mean, it's not intentional. Like, to be completely honest, and I just had a chat with my VP of engineering today. Like, we don't hire for the sake of hiring people, and
exactly,
hiring people is hard. The interview process is long and tedious and all that jazz. It's kind of more or less risky, and pretty much everything else. Like, you have onboarding, you have training, you have management, you have getting adjusted to coding standards, even though you have some already established standards, and a bunch of other things. So it's pretty hard. So it's not really a cause for us to keep hiring people for the sake of it.
Yeah.
But when you need people, you actually need people, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. Yep. When you need the hours in the day, you have, big projects coming up. You can't work your people 80 hours on a regular. I mean, you just can't do that. You gotta spread the love and make sure that there's people there to be able to fill those hours for those clients. And hopefully most of the time it's by necessity, because I actually met with a guy recently, and I'm sorry, I interrupted. I'll finish this really quickly. One of his things, one of our business partners actually ran a competing firm for a while. And part of what he actually had to close up shop about 8 or 10 months ago or something like that. And one of the biggest things that he realized was a fault was he hired on way too many developers too quickly. And he was judging his success by how many people he had on payroll. But that's not... And it's one of those things you look back in hindsight's 2020, right? Like, it doesn't work that way. You have to grow your team at the logical points in time, but sometimes that's a risk. Sometimes you might have 2 or 3 humongous contracts that once that signature gets on the paper, you got to start like right then. So do you go ahead and try to hire some people and prep for it? Do you wait until after the signatures on paper? Like, those are hard decisions to make. They're not easy.
Exactly. That's precisely my point. And yeah, to the point of it, like just this summer probably, or over the past few months, we've signed maybe over 500 billable hours per month in working retainers, right?
Yeah.
So now when you think of it, 500 hours, it's almost like it's a little bit over 3 full-time developers if you don't know what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Because you have people working on 160 hours a week or so, which is 3 people or 480. So you have another spare 20 hours to put for a 4th person, right? So it seems super easy. However, when you actually think of it, there's a lot of time that goes into R&D. There are plenty of gaps looking for a confirmation. There's lots of time that goes into deployments and stuff like that. On top of that, you have probably for several new developers, for 4, you probably need a tech lead or a team lead or someone else.
Yep.
You need a technical project manager. You need a QA. At the same time, as the company is growing, you actually keep investing more resources into accounting and legal and payroll and probably office space, computers, desks, stuff like that, right? At the same time, you have to also scale up the investment for your marketing channels, right? If you're hiring people, first off, it's going to be expensive if you're working with recruiters or other kind of different ways to kind of deal with that. And also, probably you need to add another person on your marketing team, on your sales/business development team or something else. So that's something that most people don't really realize. Like when you scale up the work with 100 hours, you probably need to hire 4 more people, which is freaking ridiculous, but probably sometimes that's actually what has to happen, right? And that's the thing with growth and process. That's the thing that most people outside of kind of the agency space don't realize. Not to mention that the summer period for us was pretty messed up. Like I said, we landed some pretty great clients that I'm, again, very grateful for. But we had, there was 1 week with 6 people off on vacations. And that was,
man.
That was exactly our lead project manager for some of the projects, our CTO, one of the developers for other projects, another developer, 3rd developer who's actually working on some of those critical projects. It was massively messed up, right? And at some of those times, you actually need those spare resources. But I mean, sometimes you just don't have those resources, and you really have to burn the midnight oil, which is far from ideal. Not to mention, some people have people leaving, or someone, sick family member or something like that. So things show up, and you need to really have the kind of backup resources to pull people out of other kind of less critical projects or stuff that's due in 2 weeks, to just put them on for a couple days and let them help the project move forward, right? So that's why it's so complicated, and that's what most people really don't understand outside of the space, because it looks so easy, right? Someone's paying you for 100 hours of work, just hire someone and he's going to have another 60 hours of free work, right? No.
It does not work that way. And what you brought up with, sure, you get this 500 hour block of work that you can do. I love what you said about, the marketing and the sales and the project management, the technical leads, all that jazz. You're right. So many people don't think about that, because once that 500 block of hours, sure, if it's on a retainer, great. You keep going and keep going. But the thing is, those retainers eventually might go away. And now that you have all these extra resources available and all this extra time with development, you got to go out and make sure that you're selling to fill the pipeline on a regular basis. You can't just have those people sitting around doing nothing and just eating away at, cash with that overhead of those salaries. And then you have the extra overhead of everything else. And so it's a very interesting process, the growth process. And there's so many minute and different things that kind of go along with it. And I love how you put that. I'm going to pivot here a little bit, actually. So one thing that I know for me that's really important as a company is giving back to the community. I think we need to do. We as a company need to do a better job of it. But we started. So this year, what we did is we started the Give 5 program, which all of our employees, and we even sometimes, tell our contractors to possibly do it sometimes too, is 5% of your billable hours go out and do something for the community that you live in. So we're not all, most of our full-time team is in the state of Georgia, but we have other contractors out in Ohio, Seattle, one that is in Florida. We have them all over the U.S. And so, honestly, where you live and where your community is, that's where you should be giving back. And I mean, you can do more elsewhere, don't get me wrong, but if you can't help the community that you're living in, then it's a little bit harder to affect communities where you're not actively living. And so one thing that I do, and I think you do a lot of giving back as well, right? Yeah. And so one of the things I do, and then I'll let you conclude with your thoughts as well. Like for me personally, the middle school teacher that taught me how to code back in the day that we were talking about at the beginning, he still teaches. And so I go down to his class because I'm only about a 15-minute drive from where that school is. And I go down there and I mentor other students that are going through his programs. I help them go through their little entrepreneurial tracks and how to build a business model and how to code in HTML and CSS, all that kind of fun stuff. And that's one of the major parts of where I spend my time, is giving back into that community, because literally that school set me on the path where I am right now. And just thinking about how all that kind of comes full circle is quite amazing, to be honest. So what about you? What do y'all do?
Yeah, so I mean, back especially over the first probably 5 or 6 years, I've probably been spending like 30% of my time on giving back.
That's awesome, man.
It was pretty insane, but it was very tiresome as well. Like it was, I was teaching also at the school that I graduated at. I was teaching at a couple universities. I was organizing the WordPress meetup and co-organizing the WordCamp and contributor days and giving back to WordPress core and free plugins and free themes. That's actually, come to think of it, it's probably more than 30%, right?
Yeah.
So I've definitely done that for a while. At some point of time, it became a bit tricky, especially when, growing a large team and so forth. So we definitely, we do push our people to contribute more to the WordPress core, to push back, patches to plugins and things like that, more of the technical stuff of things. Also, awesome. we do sponsor different WordCamps. We are just sponsoring ours, which is in a couple of months from now or so. Occasionally, we do sponsor, like we probably sponsor on an annual basis 6 to 7 WordCamps a year or so. And sometimes we actually, like, I do receive Twitter messages like, "Hey Mario, we actually didn't manage to gather all the resources. The WordCamp is just in a week. We can't afford ABC. We are running at loss. Like, would you mind being a sponsor here for whatever?" Like, I don't want to call names right now because it's probably going to be a bit unpleasant for the guys, but we've done that several times already, and it's like it really makes me feel well, because those folks manage to get the resources for all the free food and all the free jazz for other people who can't afford to go to WordCamps, for example, right? And also, like, lately, especially over the past year and a half, especially with a baby on the way and now with an actual baby, I'm trying to build a lot more resources, like just free content out there, both the videos and podcasts, like tons of core answers, my blogs, to just be able to have free resources for people to refer to and to use them and incorporate them in their own kind of processes. Like, just trying to manage that at scale as something that people can leverage at any point of time if they just want to invest the resources. And I also organize some other stuff, like reviewing CVs for free, and people are super excited. Yeah, I mean, I've had some people that say,
"That's a really cool idea, actually. I love that idea, reviewing resumes." That's great.
You should do that. I've had people that say, man, like, I've been looking for a job for like the past 8 months. I've been rejected like 40 times. And like, I just give them 5 pointers, and they say, within 2 weeks, I got 5 interviews, picked 2 awesome companies, and actually got a, better salary pack that what I was looking for, right? Like, and some stuff like that. Like, again, I really love to help people out. And like, actually, one of the reasons I kind of reached out to you when we kind of connected at the very same time was like, I'm trying to help, like, not that I have the time to do that, but like, it's really easy to just respond to a LinkedIn message or a tweet, even, before going to bed or on the walk out with the dog or something else, right? So it's really easy to just give a very valuable advice in no time without really hesitating or having to think it through, and this advice may completely change someone's life, right? So, so I'm completely open whenever, like sometimes it's impossible, like I gotta admit it, but like sometimes it may be a day or two later, but like completely free to give free advice to whoever reaches out. And like lots of people just, I see, thousands of video views and a bunch of likes, but like nobody is actually willing to connect and engage and just ask follow-up questions. And that's why I really admire the people who have the strength and the willingness to actually type in a comment, because it's not easy. It's not easy to just show yourself out there. Like I've had so many, like I've given hundreds of talks at conferences and events and training camps and whatnot, hundreds of talks, sometimes with hundreds of people. And I always leave 5 or 10 minutes for questions. And like every time it's like, do you guys have any questions? Silent hole.
Nothing.
And then you have like 30 people lining up to just ask their personal private question, because it just makes it easier, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's really interesting for sure.
When I did not a conference, that would be blowing it way out of the water. I went and spoke at a class at my old university a few weeks ago, and I actually posted a clip of it on LinkedIn, and I was impressed. We actually opened it up. It was me and a buddy of mine named Mark, and Mark and I decided at the last minute, rather than just kind of me stand up there and talk for 20 minutes about everything I do and how what I do could help them out in the future as college students, and then him do the same thing. It's kind of boring that way. We decided to do kind of what you and I are doing right now. We're just kind of bouncing back and forth between each other, except we did it live. And so we kind of intentionally left some openings at the end of each of the little segments that we did for questions from the college students that were there. And there's probably about 100 of them there, so give or take, maybe a little bit less. I'm terrible with guessing numbers. I'm so bad. And we'll say there were 6,000. Let's just put it that way.
Just round it up.
Round it up a little bit, right? Yeah, exactly. And I was really impressed. I mean, we didn't have a moment that went by over that hour and a quarter where somebody wasn't talking, whether it was us, whether it was a student asking a question. I mean, we probably got 7 or 8 different questions from the audience that were like, they were great. They were so well thought out and really had a lot of different diving points off of to kind of answer it in multiple different facets, which I was very impressed with. I know when I was in college, as soon as the speaker left, boom, bolting out the door. Not social, not extroverted at all. Just literally get me out of there ASAP. So I was impressed that they were able to do that. And we're hopefully going to go back again at some point soon. Those are always, when you have the chance to talk to students and really kind of connect with them at a different level like that, I think it's a lot of fun, and you can really see the change that just those quick little talks make. Like, I've been in conversation with about 6 of them since that day, via LinkedIn, via email, other things, and kind of walking them through what their processes are like and how they're doing what they want to do. And it's really cool to see kind of that progression throughout college. It's really nice.
That reminds me that we are doing some career coaching over the next few months.
Oh, that's awesome.
The school year starts. We really want to help out some folks with, again, career coaching. Also, in a month from now, we are starting a local training internship program or something like that. So we're just working on the scope right now, but it's actually starting in a month. When we move to the new space, we allocated a pretty large room for training that can accommodate 20 plus people, probably even 30 if you don't have that.
That's a great idea.
And we definitely want to keep doing that, because I mean, we do believe that investing in the future is pretty great, and it's definitely super helpful. But yeah, since we're approaching the hour mark or so, I do suggest that we can kind of wrap up with kind of the number one takeaway for people who watch and they're kind of freelancers or agencies and just want to kind of make it work one way or another. Like, what would be your number one tip for them? Number one advice, the thing that they need to focus in order to scale in a decent manner?
Honestly, it's all about who you surround yourself with. Whether you're a freelancer, whether you're a business owner, whether you're trying to make that step from freelancer to business owner, it doesn't matter how good or how bad you are at X, Y, Z, or whatever industry you're in. You surround yourself with people that are strong where your weaknesses are. And if you're doing that, you're setting yourself up for great success. If you surround yourself with like-minded people that will tell you exactly what you want to hear every single time, you're not going to go very far. So people that can tell you the hard truth, that aren't afraid to, and that will still love you even if you make a bad mistake and you go against their thoughts and ideas, those are the people that you want to surround yourself with. And whether you want to be a freelancer your entire career, you want to grow an agency, doesn't matter. Or even if you're an employee in a business, still surround yourself with people that are smarter than you and better at you in your weaker areas. And because of that, you'll grow to be a better person and a stronger person. So it's all about people. What about you?
Yeah, that's a good one. So I have a few possible answers here, but I'd probably going to take the contrast route just to make it more interesting. So,
do it. I like it. Yeah. That sounds great.
Yeah. So you want surrounding yourself with best people and so forth. So I'd say if you can find the right people for whatever reason, because you're surrounded with bosses, I hope not, but just for the sake of the argument.
Of course.
Yeah, you can just actually focus on recurring revenue model. I know it's everyone's talking about it and so forth, but like most people don't actually realize how good it is. And like I keep talking about this all the time because I've heard this advice for years before implementing it myself. And probably if I had done this earlier, we would have been, I don't know, 100 people or so, simply because I would have been smarter than my current me. Right. But yeah, bottom line is like, surrounding yourself with people, what you just said is definitely on point. But regardless, just thinking in a recurring revenue mindset is going to bring you up closer, because whatever opportunity you identify, you can always find ways to do, maintenance, reports, consulting, ongoing, I don't know, updates or whatever it is. And, things keep piling up. Sometimes it's, $100 a month, but 10 clients with $100 a month, it's $1,000, right?
That's not bad at all.
Absolutely, you may get them to 20 clients in a year or so, right? It's a couple $1,000, and like that's pretty good now, right? So just thinking like because most people, they always ask about the high hourly rate, right? Or just a very short work week or some things like that, right? Just thinking small, small and gradually just adding up on top of something. This may yield better results, right? Warren Buffett, I don't remember when he actually became super successful, but like he's been investing for like 30 years or something before he actually started making a major profit, and everything became so much easier because it's compound interest, right? It gets dramatically better. And when you have ongoing customer base, it's portfolio, it's connections, it's reputation. And at the end of the day, you also end up surrounding yourself with the right people.
You do. Exactly. I like it, man. Well, hey, thanks so much for chatting with me today. It has been absolutely fantastic. I love the idea that you had to do our initial conversation on YouTube Live. This is amazing. And we'll do it again at some point soon. I like it.
Excellent. It was definitely a pretty cool chat, and I do believe that we can actually repurpose some of that probably with some short snippets and takeaways or some stuff like that, or probably try to split up the videos in some more manageable manners. But yeah, definitely dig it, and definitely would love some comments from people listening to that on YouTube or Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever it is. Where can people find you actually?
Yeah, so people can find me on LinkedIn, obviously. I'm Chris. In case I don't know if I actually said it. My name is Chris LaFay. So in case I didn't say it, there it is now. So I'm on LinkedIn. Our company name is ClassicCity.com. We do a lot of web development, as you can probably tell. And we're also on Twitter as Classic City Con, because somebody else took Classic City. Shame on them. But that's okay. What about you?
Yeah. I'd say people can just look up Mario Peshev on LinkedIn, Twitter, Quora. I'm pretty active in those places. And also, the company I run is actually Devrix. We do ongoing retainers for small and medium enterprises, super high-profile publishers, and also very fast-paced startups. So it's definitely super exciting. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out, connect, follow, ask me some follow-up questions, ask for free advice. Like I said, we'll definitely be happy to help out.
Yes, definitely so. And if you have any ideas of what we could talk about next time, feel free to drop them down here as well. And we'll do this again to answer some of you guys' questions. I like it. So you guys have a great rest of the day, and we'll catch you all later.
Cheers, all.
By the way, at some point, one of the first videos I watched of yours.
Are we still live?
Oh, actually, yeah, hold on.